Okay. I am sorry for being late. I'm very sorry. Very, very sorry. I had technical issues. I was trying to fix the lagginess of the stream, and then I broke everything. And I already started late because I was goofing off and playing Here's the Storm too long. So, unfortunately, I don't think I fixed the stream. It's still kind of choppy. It's choppy before it gets into the computer. That's the problem. But I will eventually get to the bottom of this. So, hello everybody. I am going to do something kind of simple today. I'm going to make a fancy AC cable and show you guys how to do it. I was going to actually make a real video on how to do it, which I thought would be probably better. I still might do that, but with how busy it's been lately, I just don't see me doing that. And I've been doing this torture exercise of benchmarking all these coolers, which turns out it takes a very, very long time to do. It takes a long time to do it right and to mount all those coolers. But yeah, anyway, so that's what we're going to work on today. Because I was like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do for a stream today. No idea at all. But then I finally got some materials in the mail so I can finish this customer's AC cable. And where are my glasses? Because people are saying things now and I can't read them. I bet you I put them in my room. Sorry guys, if I'm going to talk to you, I gotta get my glasses. Okay. We're going to need some wire strippers, like my automatic ones. We need some diagonal cutters or some channel locks. And we don't need any crimping devices. That's pretty much it. We do need a heat gun, which I have to find one. We do need some scissors. We will need some more materials, a C8 connector, some heat shrink. All right. I think I have some white heat shrink, which I would like to use if I do. I do. That's pretty big stuff, but so for the materials, I actually have a list of the stuff on Mod 1, or at least 2 of the items on Mod 1. And you can go get them. I recommend that you get them from Mod 1. It's the MDPC stuff because it's really premium stuff. It's what I'd go to. You want the SATA heat shrink, not the SATA sleeving, not the stuff I'm using right here. And you want the SATA heat shrink for this mod. But I don't have that at this time. I can make do with this, but the MDPC stuff is easier to work with, and it's very high quality. So let's see what's going on here. Taylor says that I'm on time. Well, actually, you're late, but I am the latest I've ever been, so it's all working out. Taylor says that I like jazz, and I would say that I do like jazz. I like jazz a lot. And Jimbon says, no RTX Titan mysteriously pissed into the background. No, but if you want to arrange that for me, I'll be happy to feature it prominently someplace. And Jim Bond says he likes the Mod 1 crimper. And I don't know which one that is because they've carried a couple of them. The MDPC one that Mod 1 carried for a while is a very good crimper. In fact, it's the same crimper that I have with different plastics on it. I have one of the old school ones with Nils handwriting on it. I want to buy a Molex one. I crimp enough wires to buy the Molex one to warrant it, but it's like $250. And you know how it is, spending that much on a single tool. It's kind of like, yeah, I'll just use a cheap one for a while. So if anyone can hear me okay before we get started, everyone can see everything fine. I'm going to need to do some soldering. I guess I'll get the soldering stuff, and then we will start. I got that 9900 to 5.2 gigahertz the other day. I want to put it on the Supermay next. Open my garage and see what I can push it towards. It was getting to be ridiculous. It's like 300 watts by the time I got done overclocking it, which was insane. Insanity. Carson says that he did some soldering modding for the first time in a little while. Soldered a female cable to some headphones to give him a nice attachable cable. That's great. And you can actually do this kind of sleeving on a headphone cable, except you won't have to take anything apart. You could just sleeve it with a 3.5 millimeter jack. That would be nice. Okay, unfortunately, I bought this cable from Amazon. The customer wanted a ridiculously long length. Ridiculously silly long length of 9 feet. But the customer is always right. So when you get a 9-foot cable, it's going to run a little bit hotter and they use a little bit thicker insulation. So it's not going to be as clean. But if we got the MDPC sleeving, it wouldn't be so bad. Though this is an Amazon Basics cable. It does look kind of nice, I have to say. Not super flexible, but again, it's a long cable, so you kind of lose the trade-off. So I'm going to lay it on my floor and measure out 9 feet. I don't know if my room is 9 foot long. Okay. But now that I know it's a 10-foot cable, which I didn't remember, I could just measure 1 foot. So I'm going to measure 1 foot and a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch actually. So I can actually solder this on, make sure I'm cutting off the right end of the cable. That's the first step. I'm drinking water. That's what I'm drinking today. Because I'm thirsty. But I ingested enough Windex from the last live stream to last me for quite some time. These automatic strippers, they're really good, but as you can see, this is such thick insulation. It just doesn't really have a prayer fitting in there. So I just have to strip it the old-fashioned way. I'm going around, kind of nibbling my way through, taking my time because I don't want to damage the wiring underneath. And once the plastic starts to get a little bit weakened, like it is now, you can try to pull on it. I need to take these to a professional sharpener. These are my trusty Channellock 909s. I've had them for years and years and years and years and years. Man, this is really thick. I have to get a knife out. And the problem is, and people know if they've cut open these appliance cables before, the wires underneath are so fragile and so brittle. So if you're not really careful, I mean, I could have tugged on it, but then I would have ruined these. And I've made that mistake so many times. But now I have ground, low, to neutral out, and I can use the automatic wire strippers to strip me some ends. I'm going to strip out about 5 millimeters off the end, or 5 millimeters of exposed copper, I should say. If I can even use them, it's so fat. Bella says, me having fun with the cables yet, or is it not as fun as the button assembly did a while ago? I don't know if you're actually talking to me, Embellis. Because I'm not following you. There we go. Yeah, man, I do need to sharpen my Channellocks. Boy, oh boy. This AC cord is a higher quality one, so it's extra thick. It's ridiculous some of the garbage that they give you with power supplies these days, though. Like the wire gauge is half as heavy. Glad the frame rate looks better this week. It's still not good for me on my end. There's a huge delay, which I think I could actually fix by unplugging my camera and plugging it back in. I'll do that right now. I'll probably break it, but I want to get greedy. So... better. No, still pretty bad. Anywho. So these are called aviation connectors, and you can find them pretty much everywhere. They're fairly cheap, so I rip you off when you go buy them from my website. But I have to pay for the website hosting and the transaction and time shipping and everything. So really, I wouldn't go to my website just to buy these. I'd go buy it someplace cheaper. But if you're already buying stuff from my website, I think it's probably makes sense to buy it from my website. How is it? The thermal paste, it just follows you everywhere. Man. I am using a three-pronged GX16 connector, but you can use a 4-pronged one like I sell on the website. The 3, just, you know, ground, neutral, load, but it doesn't really matter. It could be 5 pins. It's just the 4 pins and under. 4 pins and 3 pins are the easiest to work with, obviously. Frame rate died already. Of course it broke. Of course it did. Got a big red box too. Drop frames. Man, I'm just dropping frames left and right. Let's go settings, output. Let's go to 100. Okay. I could stop and start it again. Man, I would really like to get this working sometime. Man. Let's see what happens if I stop. It's looking better. It's looking a lot better. I'll just continue onward then. So I'm going to take apart this guy. You need a tiny screwdriver, but not the tiniest of screwdrivers. And again, I have thermal paste all over my fingers again. I don't know what is on it, but no matter how careful you are, I've been doing so many of those coolers that my skin is just peeling off my fingers and they're gray from thermal paste stains. So there's a little collar on these connectors, and this serves to kind of bite into your cable and hold your sleeving or your insulation to keep it from pulling out and tugging on the parts that you're soldering. To open up the final little bit, there's a screw in the front. Thermal paste and copper coat. Yeah, it just seems to get everywhere, no matter how careful that you are. I think what it is I have a rag or something I keep wiping my hands with that has it on, or a tool that I don't really know what happened. All right, to pull these apart, you have to twist the black part. You twist it counterclockwise if you have the black part facing you, and then it pulls out. And there we have it. Usually there's a little plastic collar on the inside. That serves as insulation for your jacket. And how this does is you would slip this over. Man, this cable is so thick. It's actually not going to pull through, which won't be a problem if this black part lines up. Well, it's actually is going to be a problem. It's going to be a big annoying problem because I really need to pull this down and then pull it back up again. So how I'm going to solve this is probably going to be shaving it down real carefully. If you didn't have to buy a freaking 10-foot cable, this wouldn't be a problem because you could usually just slide this right over. But it is going to be a slight problem for me. Gonna just have to carefully shave it down. And this is going to be mostly hidden by the heat shrink and the sleeving. Again, sorry for starting so late tonight. just really need to get enough to where I can slip that collar over the end of the wire. Which may be quite a bit. I do have another trick if I need to get too deep with this. I'm gonna peel this off and I'm gonna use that other trick because this will take too long on the stream of me just whittling this down. These are called aviation connectors, usually prefixed by GX. These are GX16 because they are 16 millimeters in diameter. Try not to remove the inner cable sheathing. Okay, this might be enough. Oh, it's going to be a pain to solder this, but we can do it. So the first things first, I am going to get my heat shrink. Thank you, Blue Blog, for subbing, especially in a live stream. I usually do videos that are produced of high-end mods. The live stream's kind of a chill thing I do on Monday. Just kind of hang out and get some of my chores done. But I'm happy to have you. Just set your expectations low. Where did I put my... There it is. This will go straight over, so I don't really need to worry about putting this on first, but I'm going to anyway. I am going to put my sleeving on before I begin. And I'm going to get this tangled up, and it will never be right again. I'm using a piece of gaffer's tape to group up the ends of my cables so I can fish them through the sleeving. I'm using some very narrow sleeving. This is they said 6 millimeters to 8 millimeters diameter when I purchased it, but the cable that I got ended up being, oh my goodness, it looks like 10 millimeters. Where did I put my calipers? It's 8.5 millimeter, which is way more than I expected it to be. It's gonna work, but it's gonna be a slight pain. This whole thing will be a slight pain. Oh, cool, Blue Blog. I'm glad that you're going to get into computer modding. And Jim Bond does have a point. It can be expensive, but when I started, I had absolutely zero money. I was working minimum wage job, and what I would do is I would mod my friends' computers, just, you know, their old junky Hewitt Packards. They didn't even have Dell. They weren't even high-end enough to have Dell, and we would just cut holes and find some paint that we could paint and polish up and sand things down. I think modding can be as nice as you want it to be. And when I attended my first big LAN party, I mean, every computer there was super nice and had really high-end expensive hardware in it. And that for a long time, I had that mentality that you have to have a lot of hardware, a lot of nice hardware to do a computer mod. But then being faced with the reality that I couldn't buy any computer parts or pieces and had to reuse stuff, it forced me to get creative and just use what I could find around the house or, pick up in the scrap heap at Home Depot. And really some of my favorite mods were done in this way. I built my girlfriend a computer that was really cool. I wish I still had that. I'd pay anything to have that. Not anything, but I'd love to have that computer again. I remember one time at a sleepover for a friend's birthday party, I was like, I don't know, 14 years old. We built, one of my friends, we took their computer out and we put it in a Little Debbie boxes that they had in the pantry. We emptied all the parts out. We made ourselves a cardboard computer case. Oh, this is just so tight. I'm going to use some Novus 1, see if I can lubricate it and help get this on here. Man, I got this so tight on here, it doesn't want to go forward or backward. Yeah, and tin snips are an amazing purchase. I have 2, and I just get them from Weiss because they're pretty affordable. I have a pair of long ones and short ones, and I think that you really do need both. But, for, I think $40 for both of them, that's a really good investment. Man, I'm going to be in trouble here. And I kept saying, to this customer, can we make it 6 feet? Because if we make it 6 feet, it'll be really nice and easy. It had to be 9 feet. Man. This is just embarrassing. The cool thing about small form factor too is that you can save a lot of money when you're doing your builds. You don't need to have a lot of traditional computer parts, and your materials can be cheap. And you can arrange things in interesting layouts. This is ridiculous. This is truly ridiculous. I have never seen this before. I may have to just build another cable for you guys and do this customer's cable later. I think that's what I'm going to have to do, because this is not going to work. The problem is, I mentioned before, I ordered sleeving that for a normal width 6/4 inch thickness cable, but this cable, because it had to be so long, the insulation ended up being a lot thicker. And when I got both parts in the mail, it was a a problem I did not foresee. Okay. Let's build a different cable. That's just stupid. I'm going to build one with this really nice MDPC aqua color. And this is the Sata sleeving, which I have actually linked in my YouTube description. As you can see, that's going to pop right over and it's going to look really nice. Thank you, Luna. I actually don't know. I probably should sell these because they are really nice looking, but I don't know how much to charge. I guess it depends how long it would take me. The sleeving's actually kind of expensive. But probably be something like 40 bucks, which is very expensive for an AC cable. But I'll let you see what it looks like when we get done and see if you think it's worth it to pay me to do it, or if you can see how easy it is, maybe you can do it yourself. Because I know that you have experience doing this kind of stuff. All right. I'm gonna butt it up all the way to the end. And I'm gonna pull real tight. Now, see, I have this extra amount. I don't want to cut right here because obviously I need to have it back a little bit so it covers the end of the connectors. So what I do, it's a really simple trick, is I just go back to the other end of my cable and I go, okay, well, I need about 1.25 inches there. So I just move this back where I want it. And then I can cut it at the end of my cable and I don't have any of this stuff wasted because, again, this is expensive sleeving. And before I put my sleeving up, I always burn the ends so I don't have it unravel on me. I say burn, but I really mean just melt. And I end up exactly where I want it because I'm going to have my connector going to be like this. The last little bit's going to be heat shrinked. So that worked out quite nicely. So what I like to do next, before I start soldering, so I'm going to get my heat shrink. And again, I recommend the heat shrink that I have in the description, not the stuff necessarily that I'm using. I'm going to square this up. Hey Mendel, the cable is just an AC power cable. It's just a fancy AC power cable, like for a computer. And I'm just making it so it looks nice. There's no reason for it, no special reason it needs to exist. But it's just a nice modding thingy that you can do to spice up your rig. Oops. One more time. I know I have to do this a lot, but I really like to make sure that I have that butted up all the way against the end. Okay. Now, I like to do this. I like to get some super glue or really any kind of fast drying glue. It's not necessarily necessary, but it's just kind of a nice little, I think it makes things more professional. Put a little tiny dab at the very, very, very end. Then I put my sleeving back over it. Then I get my heat shrink. The heat shrink, well, all the supplies to make this cable are found in the description of the video. There's a link right to it. But this heat shrink, or the stuff I link is for SATA cables usually. Now, when you're doing your heat gun on your cable, it will melt and fray your your sleeving. So you got to make sure that you're not ever pointing the jet stream at the cable, or it will get blistered, and then you'll have ruined all your hard work. So make sure, it's this really stupid tip that I have to say it, but just, you know, just so you don't get too hot and heavy at the end, you have to really work the heat over to the edge without putting the hot air on the edge or touching your sleeving, or otherwise it'll ruin it. And that's nice. So now when I'm working, I have this end all done, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. So I'm going to coil this up temporarily. Should probably put my glue up. Props to Gorilla Glue, by the way, for actually making a super glue that you can reuse. Their tip actually works to open it up a couple times. Now I'm going to slip over my collar, my metal collar, over the ends of my stripped cables. Actually, I'm not doing this the proper order. It will work for how I'm doing it, but I want to do it just in case I didn't have oversized heat shrink. You have to cut your heat shrink first. I'm going to measure it out. About right there. Blue Bog, you're asking about the Shadow Gaming Company. If you're talking about what I think you're talking about, it's that basically just streaming the games over the cloud. And there's been a couple different companies that would have done that over the years. I don't know why they are different, but eventually it's going to work. The right person needs to come along and make it happen. I think the right person to make it happen is a big company, like bigger than Steam, like Microsoft or Apple. I think it has to be even bigger than Sony or Microsoft or Xbox. I think it has to be a bigger company to make it work. Because the thing is, gamers are pretty married to their concept of their hardware, their console. You know, they really hate the idea of having cloud-based gaming. I think in general, it's just an intuition. It's not a fact. I don't know any better, but until it becomes something that they can access for free, everyone can access like a couple AAA titles for free and try it out and see that it works good. It's going to be a hard sell for a lot of people. All right, so I have my extra sleeving down here. Now I can start. Gotta put my collar on. Ground, load, and neutral. It doesn't matter where you wire it up. You just have to know, obviously, what's coming out of what when you hook it up to the other end. A 3-prong makes sense for my application, but a 4-prong might make better sense for you, and you can split either the ground, the neutral or the load along those other 2 pins, and that helps. Like if you're wiring up to an HDPlex 400, which has an 8-pin connector. You know, 4 pins is half as many as 8 pins, so it just kind of makes sense to evenly distribute up those wires. But I'm just making a simple AC cable. I don't know what I'll use it for. Just making it, so. I don't really have a standard pinout for a 3-prong cable. Usually I have the ground on the top, and then I have the load bottom left and neutral bottom right. But because that's kind of the opposite of the keying on this, I'm not sure what I'll do. I guess I'll just make the bottom the ground, and then I'll have the load on the right and the neutral on the left. It doesn't matter. Again, you just have to pay attention. I'm just going to make a new standard for me. Right on my whiteboard. I'm going to make sure that matches up my black one a little bit, which it actually does quite nicely. I could put my collar over, but I'm probably going to end up using hot glue. The collars can be, I don't know, I could try the collar. The collars can be problematic. I'm not going to use this little plastic collar. It's an insulative collar, so when you get your soldering and everything done, it's supposed to go back over and prevent shorts against the outside cage. But I'm going to use some heat tape, sorry, I'm getting tired, electrical tape instead, and that will give me a little bit more wiggle room. Because these are some fat cables. This cable is called a GX16 cable. You can find it in the links in the description. This would fall underneath my website, nfc-systems.com/shop. There are cheaper places to buy it. It only makes sense to buy it from my shop if you're buying other things. I say that, but I mean, they're cheaper if you buy them in a kit, you know? of a couple of them. I'll put this up to the camera after I get the solder done so you can kind of see what I did, but with the lens that I have, and I should probably just do this one at a time, but I'm getting greedy. See, is this the long one? Alright, I'm gonna do it one at a time. I'll stop being greedy. It's amazing how being greedy doesn't actually make things faster. Heating up my old WS51, which I'm gonna have to make repairs to soon. I have mine at 750 degrees Fahrenheit for this, which should be plenty enough. Peter asked what my favorite pizza topping is, and that's a good question because I like just about everything but lots of different kinds of meats. I like anchovies. I really like anchovies a lot. Anchovies and mushrooms. I do like pineapple, and I know a lot of people disagree with that. Although I wouldn't put pineapple on a pizza other than a Canadian bacon pizza, I suppose. Maybe pepperoni. I guess I like pizza supreme, but I actually can't eat pizza anymore. So that's kind of a moot point since my surgery. Or I could, but it would be pizza with fake everything on it, and who wants that? Mushroom is so good. I like mushrooms in general. When I clamp my cables, by the way, here's another stupid point that you guys already know. I don't clamp the insulation or the outside insulation. I clamp the actual cable I'm soldering because that actually acts as a heat sink and it prevents the cable from being damaged or from solder flowing too far into the cable and making the cable really stiff. So you kind of want to clamp up really as close as you can if you have a good soldering iron. If you have a weak soldering iron, you have to go back a little bit further. This one I want it to hold. I'm actually going to do the opposite. Clip the inside of this hole. I think that's going to work quite swell for me. And when you're soldering, again, most everyone knows it, but I'm just, talking in case somebody doesn't. You're not trying to heat the solder, really. You're trying to heat the thing that you're soldering, like the wire and the component. And you're trying to, the solder just flows right into it. But to get started, you do have to touch a little bit of solder to your iron and a little bit of solder, kind of gently drag it over to your wire once it gets hot enough. It's very much like welding, in case you do that. But if you weld, you probably solder, so. Now that I have that kind of set, I'm going to rotate it over and finish my joint, make it a little bit stronger. Being greedy again and setting up my other two. But it's going to work. It's going to work for me. I want to make it as low profile as possible so it fits inside that connector with ease. Jim Bond asked where I found the stand I'm using. This is the best soldering station I have ever used. You know, a good soldering station costs hundreds of dollars. This was like 40 bucks on Amazon. It's called Quad Hands by quadhands.com, and it is incredible. Solid steel base, solid aluminum base for these arms, really strong steel clamps. They're adjustable. It is built like a truck. I mean, totally worth it. I think it costs more money now, but honestly, it's worth $150, easy. This part right here, I did mod myself. I put this on here, and it's kind of my fume extractor, if you will, but I have to have the DC plug, and I don't know where. It actually might be here. It is here, which I should use because this stuff can make you sick. I should use some electrical tape before I shock myself. Oh right, I forgot I'm out of electrical tape, which is a real bummer. This is a Weller WE-S51. It's an older model now, but you can probably find one used on eBay. It's a good budget soldering iron. It's like, I don't really know how much it costs, to be honest. I definitely get my money's worth out of it. But so far, it hasn't been lacking for me in power or heat up times. Run this NFA15 at full power. These are very, very strong fans, ridiculously strong fans, and not actually too loud for how powerful they are. All right, got that. Oh, I forgot. I had all my soldering joints lined up, and then I moved it. All right, let's do the load wire. Not really getting any good flux here. Come on. Come on. There we go. Yeah, it's leaded solder. The silver solder is garbage. You don't really want to breathe leaded solder, silver solder fumes either, so. I'm not debating that lead is far more toxic, it's just that who wants to breathe solder fumes in general? Now I'm going to inspect my work. My joints look strong. Does my shell go over it nicely? Indeed it does. So now I'm going to do insulation, and I'm going to show you what I do for insulation. That it's kind of messy, but it works really well. I'll let that run for just a second. And try not to trip over it. Now, the thing is about this cable, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it has to plug into something else, right? At the end of the day. You can use whatever end of the connector you want. So you could use a 3-prong C14 connector, but I'm using a GX16 connector. So whatever you're plugging into has to be wired up for this. But it's panel mount, really easy. Just solder these 3 points. If you're going to a DC or an AC to DC adapter, again, real simple, like those Meanwheel bricks I have down there. Real simple to wire up, but you could put whatever into the connector that you want. I'm just a fan of these GX connectors. Ralph Lauren says, good evening. How goes it at my place? I think Hacienda is my place, but or yes, Haciendo. But I could also just interpret it as hacking, because that's what it sounds like in English, right? How goes the hacking? But it's going very well. I need to buy a better hot glue gun. This one takes forever. It has doing. Okay, thank you. How to make pretty AC cables and learn some Spanish. Dalton, you just wanted to start a fight. That's what you wanted to do. Liquid metal, I couldn't say this more and more. There's people called what's the word? Industry influencers, I suppose, and these are pro modders and YouTubers and overclockers. And as they should, they influence the industry. It's a trickle-down effect. You know, what they're using, everybody else wants to use. And liquid metal is one of those products that just, it should only be used in certain circumstances by certain levels of people using it. I don't like it because I have seen so many builds come to me that were worked on first by someone who's building a computer for the first time, and they're ruined because of liquid metal applications. I've gotten computers from Amazon, because I buy a lot of parts from Amazon because I'm a small business and it's awesome. And I'll get the motherboards and they'll be labeled as new and there'll be liquid metal in the sockets. So that's a real problem for me, and it tells me that it's a challenging product to work with and get the application right. Now you might say, okay, well, those people are just dumb. Liquid metal is kind of challenging to work with, and unfortunately, it can flow out of your socket. It can flow out of your socket. It doesn't happen often because usually, you know, you're not moving your system around. It's not getting hot while you're moving it around, but it can happen. I have seen that happen before because people use a little bit too much. And the last thing with liquid metal is it's really challenging to apply properly. You might get it applied on there, but if you don't have a perfect application, you're going to have to end up reseating your heatsink several times. And, you know, if that's you, if you're the kind of guy that doesn't mind doing that, it's the product for you. That's awesome. But the problem is, again, a lot of first-time builders say, okay, what's the best out there? And then they buy it because liquid metal offers superior contact to a normal, typical TIM, and then they end up getting a system that's damaged or doesn't perform as well. So that's my opinion on liquid metal. It's It's a nice to have in certain scenarios. I don't typically use it because of the shelf life of it. I usually use a thermal paste that I can reapply, you know, every year if I need to. It does offer better performance if you apply it correctly. So yeah, it's a good product, but it's a challenging product to use, and I think it's marketed to people that shouldn't use it as their first build. And then, yeah, and now delidding's a completely different topic. I've covered kind of part of that too, but that was completely misunderstood. People thought that I meant that delidding doesn't work. That's ridiculous. That's not what I meant at all. Delidding, of course, can work. It's just that sometimes you can get a bad delid. Sometimes you're not guaranteed to get a magical, awesome working computer system after a delid. The parts that we're working with, they're not machined to flawless tolerances. They warp after being put together, and sometimes after you pop those dies loose, they're never going to be level again. They're never going to be perfectly true again, so you can't ever get that heat spreader back on there to a degree where you're going to improve your temperatures. It's very rare. It does happen, though. I promise you it does happen. In fact, I don't want to call out this company, but there's one company that specializes in selling delidded processors, and I've gotten a bad delid CPU from them before, which tells me that, you know, they do their benchmarks, they do all their testing and everything, they do their overclocking, they bin it, and then they do the delid, and then they measure temperatures, but you need to do it a couple more times. So again, I'm for delidding, I'm for liquid metal, but under the proper context. So this is probably hot enough now. So there's my rant. Now, if you want the best product, it's not liquid metal. Well, it is a liquid metal, but it's not liquid metal, and that is Indigo XT. And Indigo XT is an extremely challenging product to apply. It comes in a hardened form at room temperature, and it comes on this little wafer piece of tape, and it looks like a U, and it's ramped. It has a sloping ramp on it, and it has a very complicated installation process that requires a flow and reflow procedure. A pain in the butt to get working correctly, but that, if you want to see some incredible gains from a TIM, that's what you want to look for. But I mean, I warn you, it comes with 2 applications because they know you're going to mess up the first one. Buy 2 kits of them, and you'll spend like $50 because it is a big challenge to get it right. And another problem with it too, just so you know, it welds your CPU to your heatsink cold. So don't try to remove your heatsink without unlocking it first, because you could end up pulling it right. I've done that too. Don't do that. But Indigo Extreme, that is good stuff. But it's also CPU specific, and I don't know if they make it anymore. So anyway. Anywho, what I'm going to do here is I am going to use a teeny tiny amount of hot glue in between my cables on the end, because I do not want them ever touching together. They're not probably going to in most applications, that's why this isn't necessary, but I want to be darn sure. So I'm going to put this in here. And all I'm doing, and I'm not really going heavy on the glue, I'm kind of painting. I'm using the tip of my glue gun, kind of like a paintbrush, and I'm just painting over the exposed metal. It's kind of tricky to do. It takes a little bit of practice to get it right, but don't fret if you get too goopy on there, because I will show you another trick, which is another really simple thing. Okay. Once I have my cables kind of glued, I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to basically solder the hot glue into my cable. So it's going to melt, and it's going to flow over all the metal parts and get in all the cracks and become really low profile, which is what I want. Actually, I do need to do get prepared for the next step, because there is a next step. thought. When I get the hot glue nice and hot and ready to get soldered, it's gonna wanna flow and drip, so I'm gonna get my electrical tape. I'm gonna wrap it really tightly just one time around. I'm gonna turn off the excess, that way I can get the collar back over, and then I'll be absolutely sure I'm not gonna get any grounding problems. It's almost like a visual aid because it tells you kind of what your clearance is going to be when you wrap it with the electrical tape, because it's kind of hard to tell if you don't use that. Unfortunately, I didn't tape up my collar. You probably want to put a little piece of tape around the back of the collar to keep it from slipping, because now there's a little tiny bit of glue, not a big problem, but it's going to make it kind of hard. It's going to act like a rubber grip at the end of it. Arjen, the Fatboy kit was never part of my plans at all, ever. That was something that two other people in the forum kind of had proposed and were working on, but that has nothing to do with me. I'm not opposed to people modding their minis. I think that's fantastic and amazing, but that's not something that I'm ever going to do or work on. I think it changes the mini too much, and it's too user specific. I will sell this computer cable that I'm making here at a very steep discount in honor of the stream to stream peoples. I will sell it half what I would ever charge normally in the store. Good luck, Siegfried. Man, my brain is just mush right now. Good luck with finals. The laser 3D case, the mini project with Kevin, it's going well. I just that, you know, it's one of those things that we both don't make money on yet, so we need to work on it in our off time. But we almost have the design finished, though there are a couple problems that I am unwilling to compromise on, and poor Kevin's like, but what if we do this way? I'm like, no, that won't work for me. So I feel really bad for him, but it needs to be perfect, and I don't have the solution for it. So he's off mad scientisting, trying to fix it. We can start the bidding at $15 for this cable. Start the bidding at 15. Oh, there is an NFC Discord channel. I had help setting that up. I'll put a link into the description afterwards. Thank you, Gabriel, for the compliment. I really appreciate that. Now we got the bidding going. $25. Keep in mind that when you're bidding on it, you need to wire up the end yourself for your application, unless you send the project to me. Hey, Scooty Rudy. I guess people are sponsoring me now with ridiculous prices for the cables, so I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. This cable is a little different. I probably would list this for like probably 45 or 50 on my website. I think a normal cable with the normal thickness and normal length of 6 foot, I'd probably put it $40 on my website. This one's kind of, it's long and it uses thick insulation, so it's been a challenge to build. I'm going to close off the bidding at $51 to Luna in 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Luna, very much for it. You have my info, so if you want to email me, I will box this up and ship it off to you in Canada. Thank you for being a viewer of the stream. I'll send you it with free shipping, which is most of the cable cost for being such a loyal follower. And some other goodies I will ship you. Do you want a little tiny Android PC? I don't know if you want it or not. If you do want it, I'll send it to you. But if not, I'll send it in a smaller box to save some money. The specs are pretty bad on this guy. A CPU is a A53 64-bit 4-core Cortex. GPU is a Mali 400 MP2, but it does support OpenGL ES 2.0. 2 gigs of RAM with 16 gigabytes of internal storage. So, you know, not really enough to run Chrome. Mutkey, I did get hit with a cold front. It rained and it was cold and it was windy. You know, pick one, weather. Pick one. Okay, now that my cable is cool. Thank you, Peter, by the way, for following my streams. You're always watching. I really do appreciate it, and good job. I gotta pick this out because I was sloppy. This color is gorgeous, by the way. This teal. I've been wanting to use it for a long time. Let's see if we can get this on here. There is a key, a little pin. There's a key and a key lock, or whatever you'd call it, a keyhole. What I'm going to have to do is bust my motorcycle gloves out and do my other trick for when this happens. I'm going to heat up that collar really hot, which will make the glue squishy. And I will slide it in. Of course, I can't see. Perfect. Easy as pie. Oh, leather smells good. Which 2070 Mini did you get for your S4MC, Scooty Rudy? Now this is the lock screw for the keyed collar. It keeps the key in the keyhole from coming unaligned. think I actually need a teeny tiny bit smaller screwdriver. Thank you, Ty. I really appreciate the donation, man, and for the compliment. Scooty Rudy says he got the Zotac Mini 2070. And yes, there are other ones, but that's the only one you can get in the USA really easily. Let us know how the installation goes. It looks like a behemoth, but it could be really, really great card. I'm looking forward to it. Hey Colton, thank you for procrastinating by checking out my channel. Okay, so the last little bit of this whole cable building. Well, first, before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm going to test the cable out. I'm going to pull off the end. Get ready to lose power on my circuit in case I did upside down. Didn't hear a pop, and my Christmas lights are still on, so that's good. Voltage set to AC. And we want to put one into the load and one into the neutral. And we got 120 volts, which is exactly what we want. And if we go to the ground, what happens? Perfect. Okay, so everything's golden there. Well, actually, one more thing I will do. I will stick this into the neutral. And obviously it's working, because if it wasn't, this would have gone earthed out. But I'm going to put it on the collar. And nothing happens because, well, it's insulated. It's working right. So I'll put this over here. I'll unplug it before I go back to work on it. Okay, so gonna stretch out my sleeving one more time. Which I'm glad I did. See how it bubbled up at the end? Perfect. I'm gonna do it again. I have so much room in my sleeving. Now, if you bought the right size sleeving, you couldn't do this, but mine's a little bit big, and this is the 4:1 stuff. It's very expensive. I think the stuff I linked on the website, the YouTube stream is 3:1, but it's really good. It's what you want to buy anyway for this. Yeah, we're gonna get a little bit more. Okay, good. And what we're gonna do is you can use electrical tape, you can use gaffer's tape. I'm actually gonna use electrical tape first because it stretches. Get myself good size length. Oop. Get over the ends. I gotta stretch out one more time because I want this to be really nice. I don't have to do this, but I really want it to be nice. I want to not have any slack in the sleeving. That's what's gonna make it look nice and professional. I'm glad I did it because there was a 0.5 millimeter of stretch. I'm gonna pinch it. And once I got it over, I'm gonna tightly wrap that end up. You could use a little bit of super glue again, but I think I have so much pull on it, it goes down, it's gonna cinch just fine. So again, this would be down here normally, but since I have a 4 to 1, I can stick this over. Now there's two ways to do this. I only have one option because of, again, the thickness of everything that's going on here. But you could put the heat shrink over right to the inside of this tube, and you could shrink it down and then clamp the heat shrink with your collar. I can't do that, and I think it's gonna look nicer if I can actually embody the whole thing up to the end. That's what I'm gonna end up doing for this particular cable. But we still have a problem. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the stream, which no one does because that was like ages ago, I had to remove the sheathing, the outer sheathing, because it was so thick. And that means that this diameter right here is much smaller than the diameter right here. So if I use my heat shrink over it, it's gonna look super unprofessional. It's gonna look all lumpy and it's gonna be smaller right here. So all I gotta do to make that up is get some gaffer's tape. Don't need that much. Measure perfectly. And I'm gonna make that gap up with my gaffer's tape. And you need to make sure that this kind of part is tricky and it needs to be perfect. There is no, you can't make a mistake here. You can't go, okay, well, that wasn't perfect, but I'm gonna just live with it. It's gonna get covered up. It's every little bit that it's lumpy is gonna show in your shrink. So just take your time, make sure it's nice and smooth. Smooth out every millimeter. If it starts to kink up like mine did right there, there's only one thing that you can do, and that's start over again. Make sure you line it up better next time. Because this heat shrink is expensive stuff. I mean, it's very expensive stuff. I have 4 to 1. Go look up how much 4 to 1 premium heat shrink costs. The stuff that I'm linking to you in the channel is 3 to 1, and it's still pretty expensive. There, I got that nice and smooth. Now, my gonna form it down. And I think that looks about right. It's just a teeny tiny bit thicker than the outside of the cable, but it's gonna compress a little bit when I shrink this down. So that actually looks perfect. I'm gonna put my collar on now, which I could have done beforehand. Colton Hahn says, do I have to wire this into the power supply? What you do is you would take the connector, the male end of the connector, and you would panel mount this in your power supply or on the side of your computer case or whatever. And then you can just plug this in. It's just a detachable cable. And it has these nice collars on it, screw-in collars, so if you bump it or something, it doesn't pull out. It's very nice. It's nice. It's very nice. But remember, you're not just having to sleeve this in because it's going to be inside of the power supply. So all I got to do is use a couple bits of heat shrink and solder it. It's very quick. It goes real fast. Super easy to do. If you can do the rest of it, that part's no problem at all. Something about heat shrink too, I'm gonna look really stupid, but that's okay because I am stupid, and that's one of the best things about hanging out with you guys is that you know that I'm the least intelligent person in the room, but I do have a little bit of experience, and I can tell you guys what to look out for, and you can figure out the actual problems. But when you order heat shrink, it's measured flat. I think it's measured flat. It's either measured flat or it's measured round, but they give you the dimensions of only one. So if you're looking at and you're trying to buy heat shrink that's 6 millimeters, make sure you look up from the company how they measure it, whether it's squished flat or whether it's a round diameter, because obviously they'll be completely different sizes. I think that's what happened here, actually. I'm not entirely sure on that. But just make sure when you're buying heat shrink to see if the manufacturer gives you the dimensions when it's pressed flat or if it's round. It's important to know, because if you're buying a roll of heat shrink like I do in bulk, you're spending a couple $100, and yeah, you don't want to get that wrong. Jamie asked if I had any updates on the HDPlex power supply. If I had updates on the power supply, we'd be doing something more interesting than making cables. I'm not that sound rude. I'm not trying to be rude. It's unfortunately. Fortunately, no, I do not. I wish that I did. But I want it to be right. I want it to be right. Okay. I'm going to make sure I like the length of this, and I'm going to give it, I'll make it a little bit shorter. Longer, obviously, is stronger. Could be really fancy. If I had a thin Sharpie, I could sign this for Luna. But I do not have a thin Sharpie. It's kind of a cool idea, though. Now, I'm going to pause it. I was talking earlier, do not point the heat gun at the shrink because it will ruin... I'm not sorry, not the shrink. Obviously point at the shrink. Do not point the sleeving because it will ruin the sleeving, and then you'll ruin all your hard work. You have to start all over again. So make sure you're really careful at this last step to not blast any of the hot air, and just kind of pull the heat over. Don't blow on the sleeving. Just pull the heat over until eventually it wraps over it. That looks great. It's nice and strong. We'll let that cool. Max Harrison says, "Hey Josh, I was one of those people that ranted about the Premiere feature. I'm sorry if I got you down. It wasn't my intention. Hopefully no hard feelings." Of course there's no hard feelings. I'm happy for your feedback. I really am. I just, I'm a sensitive little baby, so make sure that when you give feedback, you think it through first and make sure it's what you really want. Because I do take everybody's feedback really seriously, and I try to change my channel in order to accommodate you guys. Because this is a team effort. It's not about me. Who would think that watching somebody build a computer cable for an hour would be interesting? It's the community, right? It's you guys. You guys are the most important part. So if you don't like the Premiere feature, let me know. I kind of like the idea of it because it would be like sort of like we're having now. We could talk about the video, but I think as a compromise, I might make my next video and launch the Premiere immediately. So it's going to be a Premiere, but the video will be on like in 5 minutes. And we'll see how that goes. Because then maybe we can get the best of both worlds. Even if only 5 people show up. But I don't know how many streamer people are watching this now, because it might be good enough to have a chat if there's as many people as there's watching right now. Zeb says, "Hey, that's one fancy AC cable I've ever seen one. Thank you, my friend. This is for Luna Grayson." And it is turned out really pretty. I like how nice and fat it is, although it was a pain in the butt to make it. I would definitely look into buying a standard 6mm thick cable. I'm gonna see if I can get up close and personal and show you guys what this looks like. Coil it up. You can kind of see the color. This is actually a realistic representation of the color, because I'm getting a nice bounce light from my modifier. But it is a very handsome cable, I will admit. See if I can take a picture. No, but I can record some video and I can take a snap from it. Let me move this bottle. That way I can use it as a thumbnail. It is very nice. I'm proud of it. It turned out quite nice. So I'm going to find a nice sack for it. I don't want to use a zip tie and damage it. There we go. Ziploc bag. Nothing screams professionalism like a Ziploc bag. But if I include a Christmas card, will that make up for it? I'll make sure to include this, but just not in the same. Oop, I'm out of focus. I've lost my focus. I forgot. I gotta use a different weird thing for my focus. Brought to you by Teal Plastidip, a product that nobody asked for and nobody should use. So there we have it. Let's do a few questions, and we wrap up the stream. I gotta scroll up on the questions and see where we left off. Someone said 77, and I was thinking, hey, that's the year of my Jeep, kind of, sort of. But no one asked about that. Zeb says, is the Kelvin T12 I sent you get any use, or did that project go south? I made a couple videos, my friend, and I did credit you. Thank you so much for all the Swedish candy. I called out, yeah, I gave you credit, and I talked about how terrible that licorice was, but how good the other stuff was. And I made a mini with it. The project was terrible, but it was a lot of fun to build. Fun video. You can check that on the channel. And I did a couple of live streams too. So I really appreciate you going through all that effort and making sure that I got the cooler that I wanted of my choice. So thank you again for helping me out. I rely on my customers and my friends and my streamer peoples to get mods done. Right now, it's actually going to be used in a different mod that I hope will turn out a little bit better. Somebody asked me how I got into computers. That could either be a 5-hour-long story or a short one. My dad was into personal computers since Apple, the very first Macintosh. And he bought that, and he was overseas and fell in love with it. And he's kind of owned Macs and a PC ever since. And so he got me into it. I didn't really care about building computers, to be honest, until I was a teenager. But that was kind of the time in the early 2000s, actually it's like 1999, where people were starting to kind of do that. And I had built computers before then, but they weren't fancy. My dad and I would put them together. We would be doing that since literally before I could talk. But I fell in love with computers, modding and building, when I went to a LAN party called PDX LAN, which is a really big, high-quality LAN event in Portland, Oregon. And a friend of mine, one of my best friends, drugged me down there. He worked for Coolants at the time. And I walked in that room, and it was like, I was just dumbstruck. I thought the computers and mods that I was doing were cool, but I had never seen anything like that before. It blew my mind, and that was when I decided that's what I wanted to do. So I pursued it great guns. Ever since then, it was a very long, starving artist, painful road, but I'm very blessed now to be able to have you guys, which support this job now full time. And yeah, so there's that. Techno asked me what do I think about the Walmart PC. You know what? I saw those YouTube thumbnails popping up. I'm like, this is just going to be more hate and drama against a big company, and I didn't want to get involved in that. I'm sure they're not great, but I'm sure that they also probably don't deserve the hate that they're getting, unless they're getting a lot of love. Maybe all those videos about how great Walmart PCs are, but somehow I doubt it. People, there's so much outrage in this world, and I just want to add some calmness and some happiness to computers and my little niche. And I don't want to get involved in drama. Sometimes I do. I take the bait, but I hate drama, and I want to do my best to fight against it. So that's what I think of the Walmart PC. I don't know anything about it. Jamie asks about the CPU cooler roundup, and that takes so much work. Wow, I've been working that literally all week, and it's a massive undertaking. So yeah, it's just so much time. I spent an entire day today doing that, and I got 5 coolers done today, and it was a productive day, including the Asetek, little tiny cooler that you can get in a bundle now for the Dondan cases. Blue Blog asks, is my favorite color is blue because I see a lot of it. And I really do like blue. Yeah. It's kind of an accident, I suppose. I didn't really do that on purpose, but yeah, I guess I do like blue. My favorite color profile is definitely that blue Zeiss pop for a lot of the old Zeiss lenses. ZebZ says, got a Dan case a couple weeks ago. I was wondering if I have any tips on keeping the power supply cables out of the fans. I use the Asetek 92mm all-in-one. Literally, if I move the case the slightest, the cables get there. And I haven't built in the Dan A4. I know that sounds horrible because I do like that case a lot, but I have not built in it, so I couldn't really say. Everything that I would do for a Dan or for a Mini, I would do custom cable lengths for everything. And I don't know if I would use the Asetek all-in-one. It is performing a lot better than I expected it to, but not to the point where I think I would go that route over an air cooler. Yeah, that Asus Strix card would actually look sick though in the Dan. It would take up that whole entire GPU compartment. That'd be a good choice for it if it does fit. Would you say it does? So, yay. I know I have a ghost here, but I don't really want to give an overview because I think that'd be tacky. Because although I'm really and totally not gunning for him, I'm not biased in that regard, but people would think that I am because, I used to sell a computer case, but I sold out. And I'm not, it doesn't affect my business one way or the other if someone buys a Ghost or a Dan, right? People are going to buy those cases are never going to buy a Mini. But if I reviewed it or looked at it, people would accuse me of that, I think. And I think they'd be right to do so. I think that'd be tacky. So, yeah, I'm not going to do that. What's my dream car? So, I love cars. I love cars. I love motorcycles. And I love tractors. But I actually would never drive anything fancy. I just don't know what it is. I just don't like the idea of driving a fancy car. I love to appreciate them, look at them. I live on the Mississippi Gulf Coast in Biloxi. We have Cruise on the Coast, which is the world's largest car show. Happen every year or in the October season. It is amazing, and an entire week of just car show everywhere. It's totally awesome. But I don't have a dream car. Really, I'm very happy with my rickety old beat up Jeep that's made out of 60,000 parts. So I guess I am lucky that I have my dream car. I really love Rolls Royce and I really love Bentley because I love the handcrafted blue collar craftsmanship that goes into both those vehicles. I mean, I would never drive one, but I really appreciate them. And I think that we need more of those kind of cars, where they kind of straddle the edge of, they're not handmade, like one-offs, which are fantastic and great, but they are a big company, but they still do things the old-fashioned way in a lot of regards. That's cool to me. That's really cool to me. Yeah, I think the Dan case is smaller than most of those GPU enclosures. It's ridiculous. I wanted to buy one for my Mac because I had a YouTube fan send me a 2080, which was amazing. So thank you very much, Chad, for doing that. And I wanted to use that for my Mac, but I can't stand the idea of buying an enclosure that's way bigger than a Dan case for it. It's ridiculous. Well, I guess we're kind of done here. So thank you very much for watching the stream. See if we can come up with something interesting next week. Thank you, Luna, for purchasing the cable. I hope that you like it. And I'm sorry for being so late on the stream, guys. I'll try to make it out next time and fix the lagging. But we'll see what happens there. All right, peace to you guys, and I'll see you before Christmas. So I won't wish you Merry Christmas yet. But I'll talk to you later.